and it was the car that a lot of people wanted, right? But then, like you said, you have other options now. You have the Hyundai, and you have the Mach-E, and all these other ones. Welcome back to Car-Pinionated, our weekly show on cars, the car industry, and driving in general. As you can see, I'm coming to you from the Car-Pinionated New World headquarters. And after a couple, maybe months away, uh, the guys are back. Um, Glenn Packman, interior design guru, comedy genius, coming to us live from Fairfield County, beardless for a short time.
For a short time. It's
And
for a part. So yeah.
and Jeff Buchholz, writer and editor at WBBM in Chicago, coming to us from WBBM in Chicago.
Yes,
Gentlemen,
Odyssey Chicago's Nerve Center has room for a little bit of talk about cars today.
okay, all right, excellent. So, guys, I wanted to talk to you about Tesla, and there's stuff going on with Tesla, and we could talk about a lot of things with Tesla, but I think as this is a car podcast show, we just want to talk about the car company itself. And so the first thing I'm going to say is that sales are down. Sales are down all over the world. This is one of several problems that we'll get to. Jeff, what are you thinking about Tesla these days?
So the sales part of it is the thing that a lot of anti-Tesla, or specifically anti-Tesla CEO forces have been sort of rubbing their hands with glee about. The whole, you know, uh, there seems to be a great deal of Schadenfreude being kicked around um, as a response to some of the sales figures that we've seen. And while that would be an easy explanation, I'm not entirely sure it's the correct one. There are a few other factors at play. First of all, um, in one of Tesla's most important markets, which is China, the home-built electric vehicle market has really, really taken off. And there are some incredibly compelling offerings from companies like Geely and BYD, along with some smaller companies. I think we've talked on this podcast before about there are like 200 some odd companies making electric vehicles in China.
Mhm.
And at some point there will be a shakeout and some of those will no longer exist. But Tesla is facing competition in the Chinese market in a way that is sort of different to what they've been finding in every other market in the world. And so their sales are softening in China. That's certainly part of the factor there. In Europe, there does seem to be a lot of ideological based softening of Tesla sales. But as I have read in some other publications and other sources, the Chinese appear to be making headway there with building electric vehicles in Europe, or making alliances with other companies. Stellantis, uh, the multi-armed, multi-pronged European car maker, has a Chinese, appears to be making some inroads into the EU market. So there's a little more competition there. In the United States, the sales are starting to trend down, and there's certainly a lot of anecdotal evidence of Tesla owners being beset with bullying and worse, which nobody on this podcast condones. But let's also remember that the Cybertruck is Tesla's newest vehicle in terms of platform. Its oldest, which is the Model S, which apparently it still makes, has been around in pretty much the same form since 2012.
Hmm.
And while the argument could be made that the Model S and its other vehicles, since their introduction, the fact remains that for most people, the model year changes are pretty hard to track. I'm aware that the Model 3 has gone through separate front ends, and we've talked on this podcast before about is it the Model Y that is now that now has like
Yes.
detailing and like
Yep.
the front
The front end.
fascia and the rear lights and that kind of thing. Yeah. And that is probably the most significant update to that car since its introduction. And it would, it's easy to sort of say, well, all the news is happening on the side and the cars are very different and they're much better, and that's probably true. But honestly, most American consumers who are in the market for new cars want new cars. They want
Yeah.
cars that look new, that look different, that look interesting. And let's
That,
also
that, that
remember
doesn't
too
look like
that
Bob's. Doesn't look like Bob's down the street.
yeah, uh, yeah, exactly. And in addition, let's remember that the administration has throttled back, pun intended, on a lot of the incentives designed to uh, increase EV sales. Tesla is kind of immune from that because, I mean, I don't know what the cheapest Tesla costs anymore, but
To just point out, Model Y on their homepage is 48,000, if my math is correct. It says um 41 41,500 after $7,500 federal tax credit. If I'm familiar enough to with the Tesla website that they often include the gas savings in those figures.
Yes, they do.
So yeah, let's say just shy of 50,000, right in that
okay.
neighborhood.
Yeah.
Glenn, what are you thinking?
Um, Gosh, yeah, okay. So we are a car podcast, and we try to steer clear of the politics. I'm going to go out on a limb, and please, you know, withhold the nasty comments to say that the politics are kind of intertwined with the sales problems that they have. I'm going to repeat what Jeff said and say it's not just that. But when the CEO of the company, is that his official title anymore? Whatever,
Yeah, I
the
think so,
grand
yeah.
poobah of Tesla does a pair of hand signals that are controversial, to say the least. I mean, and really offensive to a lot of people. This podcast notwithstanding, but I'm talking about just the general public. What he did at the inauguration was kind of shocking. And he's a polarizing personality, and now we're seeing some backlash, and that has an effect. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I'm saying it's having an effect. A lot of people don't want to be associated with that. And the biggest brand name in the Musk umbrella is Tesla. That's what everybody knows. So that's where a lot of anger is getting vented. Is it right? I don't think it really matters. It just all that matters at the end of the day is, are they making sales? But I am going to reiterate that they have not done nearly enough to bring new cars to their lineup. I mean,
Mhm.
really, they should be taking Honda's, the page from Honda's playbook where they redo their models every 4 years at the most, to keep the line fresh and to keep people champing at the bit to have the latest Honda. And it's smart,
Mhm.
especially for a brand like Honda that has really strong loyalists, and Tesla had that opportunity, I think. They really were doing a good job there for a period of time, but I think they got lax, and pouring all that money and all the energy into the Cybertruck I think was a colossal mistake. It's too expensive. It's too polarizing. They've had nothing but reliability issues and recalls on the car. It's a flop. Now, some people are going to argue with me that that's not true. I'm going to say that the car, for the most part, is a flop.
Yeah.
Not the big, some people are saying the biggest flop ever, but I am not going to
No.
agree with that. But my point is, it wasn't the new car that they needed in their lineup. And that's what we got. And so, of course, sales are going to lag. I don't think it's the end of the world for this company, but I think they need to start picking up the pace and doing some damage control on especially those two things. And Jeff is absolutely right. We're dealing with an administration that's kind of poo-pooing the electric car industry. And that's not helping either. That's not helping anybody. And my big argument there is if you don't like electric vehicles, don't buy one. But for us to not keep pace with the world means we're
Mhm.
just setting ourselves back. So,
Yeah.
and that's more about the all-encompassing picture than Tesla. But, it's reflecting down to Tesla because Tesla is right now the most American-made car you can buy.
Yeah.
I think it's the Model Y is about 75% parts and labor. And that's as most
Yeah. If
American
not
you can
more.
buy.
Yeah.
So the whole idea of an American car has really gone away because it's a global market now. So my personal feeling, because that's what this podcast is about, we need to embrace the global market thing where automobiles are concerned. We
I,
need to stop pretending like it's all individual countries doing their own thing. We're intertwined deeply. So again, 2 cents, but
Glenn reminded me, and I should point this out, that indeed the administration is very cool to the idea of electric cars that don't have the Tesla name on them. It
yes,
wasn't more than about a month or so ago that the president held basically a program length infomercial on the White House with a Cybertruck and another vehicle and said, "Oh, you should buy them. They're great." And the CEO of Tesla was there with him. So, it is um, indeed, while all politics are local, but all politics in this administration are personal. So, the administration likes Teslas because the president likes the CEO of Tesla. And also the Attorney General of the United States is saying that people who are found to have vandalized Tesla dealerships out of frustration over the actions of the Department of Government Efficiency will be accused of domestic terrorism or will face domestic terrorism charges. Um, that's also the full power of the federal government is being brought in
Yeah.
to protect the interests of the CEO of Tesla. I do not know if people who deface Ford dealers will face similar punishment, but I guess we have to wait and see on that. Not
Yeah.
right.
that I'm suggesting anyone should run out and do
No.
that,
No.
No,
incidentally.
no, no. And if
I,
I
I
can,
think.
Crime is bad, okay?
yeah, if I could dovetail off of that for just a second, as Doug said, the Model S came out in 2012. There were lots and lots and lots of people who bought Teslas before we really understood where
Yeah, I
Elon
think
Musk
that
was headed
I've
in the
I've read that the
trajectory.
line of demarcation is somewhere around 2018. Like
Okay,
if you bought
all right.
before
I just
2018, yeah,
I'm just from personal experience. I know a lovely couple in North Carolina that own a Tesla, and they did not buy into the politics of the whole thing. They wanted an electric car, and they wanted what was the best one available at that point in time, and that's what they went with. They've had very good luck with it. They really enjoy the car. Please don't spray paint anything on their car. They're
yeah,
nice people, and they don't agree with any of the stuff that's going on. They bought a Tesla a long time ago. So that kind of that kind of response, that's not going to get us anywhere. That's acting out. I'm sorry, but it is.
yeah.
We can do better than that. So
I have a friend in Northwest Indiana who he and his husband each have a Tesla, and he has printed up stickers for the back that say we bought this before we knew who this
Yeah.
guy was.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've
Yeah.
seen at least 2 other stickers like that on Teslas.
Yeah.
One in my parking garage and one in traffic.
Mhm. A friend of mine has that same sticker. Wanted a Tesla for a long time. Finally bought a used one, and then everything happened, and he put the sticker on the back of the car. And he just recently traded it for a Hyundai Ioniq 5.
Oh, okay.
And it's like, yeah, it's a great car. It doesn't have the software is not as cool as Tesla's. Okay,
Right.
um, but
I
he lives in
know.
Northampton, so there's an added
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
feeling about that. One of the things that so I think Jeff, somebody brought up the Cybertruck. When they were at 7 or 8 recalls, pieces of the truck are flying off because they were glued on. That I understand that they've stopped selling them while they fix all of them. Uh, the sales were not very big anyway after they hit kind of the peak of, they rolled about 40,000 of them out the door, and then they kind of stopped. Uh, the dealers are not taking it in on trade, I read someplace. Um, you just have all sorts of things around the Cybertruck uh, that are impeding its progress or sales progress or whatever. In addition to just the truck itself, which
Yeah.
okay, but and I continue to say this. I've known this for a long time, and I'm sure you guys know this too. Um, Tesla makes a pile of money off of selling their carbon credits, where they have credits because their factories and their cars don't produce or minimal amounts of carbon, and they sell that to other car manufacturers. The number I found today was uh, in uh, in 2023, it was $1.79 billion that they made. This year, it went up 54%. It is $2.76 billion. And that number obviously makes a huge impact on their bottom line, but that could change in Europe because of different variations of how this all plays out.
Mhm.
Um, you also have the situation in Canada where all of a sudden they sold um, 8,653 cars during a single weekend in January, which was enough to qualify for 43 million Canadian dollars. It's about $30 million in US dollars of government subsidies under a program before it expired. And according to the New York Times, now the Canadian government wants to know exactly how the electric car maker managed to move 2 cars a minute off its lot, a rate that assumes those 4 dealers had stayed open for 24 hours from January 10th to January 12th. That must have been some tired folks on the sales floor, I would think.
My goodness. Wearing out those white shoes and belts, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It is as things continue to progress in Washington, you'll see, I think, increased scrutiny of Tesla's business practices, certainly probably not in the US, given the CEO's relationship with the administration. And the administration's willingness at this point to shut down investigations against people that it likes and start investigations against people that it doesn't like. But certainly in other countries, you'll certainly see that in Canada, where the um, presumptive new prime minister, they have snap elections coming up, but has already taken a pretty aggressive stand toward the US and has cut off a lot of intelligence sharing and opening up channels with other countries and, making it clear that um, he's not a fan of this whole 51st state conversation that's been going on in various places and op-ed pages, I suppose. Yeah, I think we're going to see a little bit more of that. And as And as business pressures and outside pressures come to bear on that company, we'll probably end up seeing, you know, more attempts at sleight of hand to try to make up for, as you point out, you know, the incredibly lucrative business of selling carbon credits. Because if the current administration believes it no longer really cares about carbon credits anymore, as witnessed by its massive job cuts at the Environmental Protection Agency, that dries up a potential source of revenue for the company, and so it's going to have to figure something else out. Clearly, because I don't believe that absent the carbon credit payment, I'm not sure that the company would make money. I don't know that it's a profitable company less the carbon credits. I'm sure the commentariat will correct me if I'm wrong, but that is my recollection. But you know, it remains to be seen. Rubber stamp is getting worn out here at Car-Pinionated Central.
That's okay. We bought two when we bought it.
Oh, thank God.
Oh,
Yeah,
Before the
know.
tariffs kicked in, good.
Right. Exactly.
wow. Good timing.
I think ahead like that. Yeah, it's you know, if you take I mean, we've talked about the cars themselves. They're kind of they're continually improving their build quality, you know,
Yeah,
from
for
years
sure.
and years. It's gone up, right? Cars are hard to build. Um, Software is amazing. Uh, you know, I have we've talked about full self-driving under supervision is what they now talk about it. It's not ever just full self-driving, it's full self-driving under supervision. And all those things. And you know, and it was the car that a lot of people wanted, right? But then, like you said, you know, you have other options now. You have the Hyundai and you have the Mach-E and all these other ones. You know, the whole line of GM, you know, are they not calling it Ultium anymore? I
Oh, I don't
I
know. That's a good question.
I thought I heard that Ultium was no longer the phrase that they used. But you know, you're having more and more that are cheaper and cheaper and charging faster. And then setting all that aside, you have this whole movement of the industry towards, hey, look at those hybrids. Those are really cool, you know, and that solves that range anxiety problem, you know,
Right.
and so it becomes there's a lot of reasons why that Tesla is less attractive to the consumer.
Right.
You know,
Right.
setting aside any of the political stuff, any of the ideological stuff.
I've gotten the impression from them, just the general behavior of Tesla as a company recently, that they're just trying so hard to do clever things. You know,
Yeah.
they're the way that they're pitching things, and the Cybertruck itself was supposed to be just so insanely clever. And it's like you're already making a good car. Bank on your strengths and stop trying to impress us in weird ways is my only comment to that whole thing. I would much rather see a really solid replacement to the three, something that really moves the line ahead and takes what they built on and accents it and makes it even better, rather than robots and the Cybertruck and you know and all this you know
Noise.
it's coming across like smoke and mirrors when the company doesn't need that. They need to start you know capitalizing on what they're good at, and what they're good at is they've made good electric cars now for 13 years. So you know
The problem
that
with that, though, the problem with that is that the CEO is bored of making good
right,
electric cars.
right, exactly, yep. And that's where it's all coming from, and enough, you know. It just I don't know. I'm a fairly basic consumer. I'm not impressed by any of that. So, you know, I'm just one person as well, but I'm just saying I'm not impressed with any of that. If they came out with the replacement for the Model 3 that was more affordable and truly, took what they had and took it a step further, I would be all over watching that, despite all the political hoopla going on. I would still be really, really, really interested in that car. I am not interested in the Cybertruck, not at all.
I would go
No.
ahead. I'm sorry, finish up, Glenn. I'm
Well,
sorry.
no, I just in many ways the Cybertruck out on the road is forgive me, I'm going to get comments for this, but it's just kind of an embarrassing vehicle. It's today's Pacer, and some people loved the Pacer, and some people still do, and some people think the Pacer is a classic. And there were some good things about the Pacer, but the Pacer is still the Pacer, and the Edsel is still the
Yeah.
Edsel, and this car is falling right into that groove. So. Uh, Aaron, that's my
I would
soapbox.
also I would also say that the people in the development of the product initially and early on are from the tech world. And the tech world is about that new thing, like, you know, voice to text, or facial recognition, or how you interact with your phone, or how you can move stuff from one screen to another, and what your computer will do, and how to link it all up. And that sort of ideology drives this idea behind all the stuff that the car does tech wise, but the container, the wrapper, is not being paid the attention. And I think that has a lot to do with the amount of people who are working on it. I don't know, I don't know personnel figures, and they've changed. There was a layoff last year, but when you think about it, like, you think of all the people who are in the engineering and design departments at Ford, right? Or GM or whatever, and they have a deep bench, and they're making a dozen and a half cars in any specific country, and they have to have a lot of people who can work and make those changes. And Tesla just doesn't have that. And at the beginning, they didn't have it because they didn't, they were a startup company essentially. But now, as time goes by, they haven't built that part of their company up. Anyway,
What a topic.
yeah,
A little
yeah.
break. I come back to this. Whoa.
All right. Well, I think we've examined the subject of Tesla enough for one night. Um, this has been another episode of Car-Pinionated. Thank you all for watching. Thank you guys for being here as always. You can watch more Car-Pinionated episodes. Go back and find our Cybercab episode. That was a lot of fun. Um, and yeah, so they're all on our YouTube under Car-Pinionated. The whole playlist is there. And with that, we will see you next time.